Joining me now, ABC's Alex Presha and ABC News senior investigative reporter Katersky. Aaron, you just heard that powerful interview as well with Arnulfo Reyes, the fourth grade teacher. What were your takeaways from his account of those horrifying moments where he lost all 11 of his students?
I think Reyes makes clear that the police response here could have made a difference because he definitively answers the question of whether anybody was alive in those classrooms beyond the first 4 minutes when police have said the majority of the gunfire occurred. He himself was alive and shot twice. And he says he overheard somebody in the neighboring classroom call out for police as he heard them in the hallway, only to have the gunman return to that classroom and open fire on children again. His is a stinging indictment of the police response. He says he will never forgive the police officers who were in the hallway and did not confront the gunman as they were under orders. And he says repeatedly he will not forgive them.
Aaron, you know, the Uvalde police chief, Pete Arredondo, we've talked so much about, did not show up to today's city council meeting. Between that and the teacher's account of the shooting, what are we learning about the response now from not only him, but all law enforcement?
Well, we have heard from the mayor of Uvalde that he hasn't spoken to Chief Arredondo, the newly sworn councilman, in more than a week. And he himself, as mayor of the city, has not even received a briefing about the shooting, now, you know, 2 weeks old. And he says he hasn't really asked his own police chief, which is a bit baffling in and of itself. So there has still not been from those who were in charge that day a full accounting of what happened. I think the Reyes interview is also revealing, Kira, because he talks about the hollowness of the training that kids and teachers go through. He said it ended up being that we trained them to be sitting ducks as they cowered under their desks pretending to be asleep.
And Alex, a bipartisan group of lawmakers now continuing these talks all this week on some sort of gun reform. Where do we stand on this right now?
Well, Senator Chris Murphy, the Democrat who's been leading a lot of these negotiations, had a meeting with the White House, and it's still his goal to have some sort of deal by the end of the week. But again, that's a goal, not a guarantee. We know that there have been bipartisan talks specifically about expanding background checks and giving states incentives to implement red flag laws, but also for mental health and shoring up school security. But one of the things that a lot of Democrats have been pushing for is raising the age of assault weapons from 18 to 21. There's word on Capitol Hill that a lot of Republicans wouldn't go along with that, but a development that we're tracking on that particular issue right now, at least per two sources, there is a proposal to change the criminal background check system so that juvenile records could be screened for gun buyers under the age of 21. That's something new that could potentially kind of get at that, but we're going to be tracking to see how that plays.
And Alex, an 11-year-old survivor of the Uvalde school shooting is actually going to testify before Congress tomorrow. No doubt that is going to be riveting. What are we expecting from the testimony, and how do you think the committee is going to react to her story?
Well, you're talking about Maya Cerrillo, who is the young schoolgirl who smeared the blood of a dead classmate over her to hide from the shooter and pretend like she was dead. And look, I mean, we've heard the testimony from Mr. Reyes, which was incredibly compelling. You can only imagine what this 11-year-old is going to say tomorrow, and your heart just goes out to her specifically for having to live through that. And that is something that she's going to be dealing with for the rest of her life. And she's going to be joined by the family of another victim of Uvalde, Lexi Rubio's family. She's a 10-year-old. Her parents haven't even had a chance to bury her yet, but tomorrow is a very, very important day for them to make sure that their voices are heard, to try to put pressure on these lawmakers to come up with some sort of solution to the gun violence that we've seen in recent weeks.
Alex, let's turn to Buffalo while I have you. And that former Buffalo fire commissioner whose mother died at the Tops grocery store mass shooting is testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Here's part of what he said today.
This wasn't an act of God. This was an act of a person. And he did not act alone. He was radicalized by white supremacists. His anger and hatred were metastasized like a cancer by people with big microphones in high places screaming that black people were going to take away their jobs and opportunities. Every enforcement agency charged with protecting the homeland has conducted risk and threat analysis and determined that white supremacy is the #1 threat to the homeland. And yet, nothing has been done to mitigate or eradicate it.
What stood out to you about that testimony, Alex?
Well, number one, so this was Garnell Whitfield Jr. His mother, Ruth, was the oldest victim in that Buffalo supermarket shooting. But the thing that stood out to me was, number one, his poise in talking about the death of his mother. He described how she was returning from a visit to the nursing home to visit her husband. It's something that they had done for the last 8 years, 68 years of marriage. But also saying that if they don't act on this, then they need to vacate their positions. These senators need to vacate their positions and give them to people who are willing to take action.
Alex Presha, Aaron Katersky, thank you both so much, guys.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.